And as I always say, better late than never. Here we are once again, Mikey and Vinnie. Michael Knight, New York Vinnie, take on the world. And you can take that two ways, take it however you want, but take it. Take it to
Take
the
it
bank,
some,
they used to say.
pick it up, carry it down the hall, take it someplace.
Remember that? Well, I mean, you worked in radio, so you probably heard the song, Take That to the Bank,
Yeah.
which was a disco hit back in, I don't know, like 75 or 76 or something. Take that
Before
to the bank. Good morning,
before
Michael
K
Knight,
be,
down there in
be,
Pasadena.
before KRQR became KRQR, it was CBS FM, and it was a disco station for a while. And their big claim to fame is that they could adjust the speeds of their turntables. They couldn't make the jocks better. They couldn't help the songs. They couldn't buy Mercedes for the entire sales department, but they could adjust the speed of their turntables.
Well, to be fair though, Michael, that was that was a big thing. You had to get your BPMs to match.
Just so.
Yeah, you had to get it right. You couldn't mix a 110 with a 108. Cool.
Or a 105 with a 280.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want to do that. Yeah, no,
No.
that'll kill somebody. What was that? Where Wolfgang's used to be was a club called Dance Your Ass Off on Columbus there.
Well, I'm affronted by that name.
Yeah, that was. I remember. I actually went there a few times. Dance Your Ass Off was was the name of the club. That was where Wolfgang's was, where block up from where Bimbo's was and still is. I mean, Bimbo's will never go away.
How does Bimbo survive everything? It's like because they'll do parties. That's why.
Fishing a woman who dresses as a fish in a tank behind the bar. Everybody should do it.
Yeah, but it's a gimmick that has lasted the days and the weeks and the years, and it's even gone past the time where Bimbo's was a funny name, was a derogatory name, was no name. It's been Bimbo's for so long you don't even hear the word.
Yeah. Well, it was Bimbo Giantoli, the guy who used to own the place. I think his family still runs the place. Um, he was a guy that he saw know how to see a trend.
Everybody
You
else went
know,
out of business though, but Bimbo's has been there since the
but he's
'50s.
been there, and well, probably number one is he owns the building. That's always a good thing because then if you own the venue, then you can change the venue to what you want to change it to. But he's never had to change. My father told me stories about going to Bimbos in the war.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's like Pinocchio. It's like
Yeah,
it's like a place that is so uniquely San Francisco and so embedded into the grain of the city.
and what was the kickbacks for the tour buses to go to Finocchio's? I want to know because they weren't going there in that tiny little neighborhood all by themselves on a whim. They were
Yeah, I'm sure that they were tightening those guys up. I mean, I know there were places, restaurants that used to, when I was driving a cab for a while, there was restaurants who'd lay, $4 or $5 on you if you brought somebody there. And if you brought enough people, if you were working a weekend and you brought enough people, oh yeah, I know a good Italian place, Original Joe's. You
yeah.
know,
We have a situation.
you could walk away. I mean, I don't know if much of that goes on anymore. I'm sure it does with the doormen. That used to be those were the guys that you wanted to be because they all made tons of money. But
They were the gatekeepers.
well, you know what? But they helped you make money because if they knew you and they knew you were going to get, you were a $5 guy, then you were going to get a trip to the airport. If they knew that you were a cheap ass dude, you weren't going to pay him anything, or you weren't going to tip him or tip him a buck. You were going to get the short trip. It's just how it's how it runs. It probably, in some shape, manner, or form, still runs the same way. The same thing with the dispatchers when they had the two-way radios. Um, those guys you used to tip at the end of the day. If you didn't tip, you could not tip them. You didn't have to tip them, but you'd be working out in the Excelsior all day.
Yeah.
You'd be all the way out in Daly City or something like that. Um, you're not going to make any money like that. But if you went in there and you took care of Dennis, or you took care of Peter, or you took care of, who you needed to take care of,
And you'd be downtown again.
all
You'd
of
be
a
working
sudden
the
you're going to
hotels.
the airport 3 times or 4 times a day, which is gold for a cab driver.
Because the airport in cities is no longer in the city. It's out there somewhere. It's out there.
Yeah,
It's
at
passing.
that time it was a $30 trip.
Where are we? We're in LaGuardia. Well, that's an airport. No, we're halfway to your airport. We're not going to LaGuardia.
Yeah, so if you, especially on a holiday where your gate fee, the fee you pay for the taxi cab is I don't know, I forget at the time it was usually they had like a half gate or something like what they called a half gate. So instead of paying $60 or $70 a day or whatever it was, um, you paid 30. Well, one trip to the airport
And
and
you're
the rest of
leaving.
the day is money in your pocket. So all you need is one of those that, especially if you get it early, you get it, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. You get a trip like that, you're set. But you're not going to get that from the dispatcher unless you know the guy and he knows you and he knows that you're going to, grease the wheels of production.
It's America over here.
It's a fact of life. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, New York is such a corrupt city. No, 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 no. New York is corrupt, but the Millennial Tower didn't get put up because the San Francisco Board of Supervisors thought it would be a pretty building down there. You know,
We're
I
not
mean,
in the
let's
business of
face it,
building pretty buildings. That's not
a
our job.
leaning to pretty building.
It leans a little, but it really leans in a pretty way.
And much like everything else in San Francisco, it's leaning a little bit more every day.
Well, some fine day it's going to come down and be gravel in somebody's front yard.
Be graveling, yeah, yeah. I don't want to. I don't know if I want to see that.
I don't know. Does anybody live in that building? I don't think so, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're in there?
Yeah. They're in there. They've told the residents of that building, well, you know what? It really doesn't lean so much that you couldn't live there. Just
What's
don't
the name of
drop
this?
anything.
What's the name of the street? It's called Vesuvius. You'll understand.
Yeah, yeah. Just when you give somebody your address, make sure you leave a little space.
Yeah, because it could be the 600 block. It could be the 1200 block. Who's to say?
Yeah, depending on which floor, that's how you figure out what your address is going to be in the future. I mean, that's crazy. I wouldn't live in it. You could give me
By
a
the
free
way,
apartment, and I wouldn't live in there.
no way, no way, because you're
Or
not going to get.
or
There's not going
I
to be
mean, my
any
sister
warning.
works like 2 blocks away from there, and I don't like the idea of her going to work.
And people will say, "We had no warning. You had a warning when you
Plenty
moved
of
in.
warning.
We told you the building was leaning. That was your warning. That should have been. That should have been. Alarm should have gone off. Oh, the alarms went off. They go off every morning. That's why we had to turn the bells off because the building's leaning and the alarms are going off. You had a warning. We just turned off the warning. We told you that it was a warning, but don't worry about it. There's warnings you worry about and take seriously. There's warnings. Hey, what are you going to do?
We told you that it was going to lean over and go down, but you said you prayed on it, and God said it wouldn't go down. And science won, God nothing.
Got on top of them and prayed.
Yeah,
Hey, get off me over here.
you
By
kid
the way,
me.
when I woke up this morning, there's one thing I didn't do. I didn't wake up. I'm here. I'm hearing you. I'm on this thing. I can see my hands moving, but I'm telling you, I am not awake. Maybe there'll be a ruling from the Supreme Court that will snap me out of this.
I'm sure they'll rule on something, Michael, before maybe even before our show is over. Who
Well,
knows?
they ruled on the idea that it's up to the president now to tell the content providers on the internet that they can't post inaccurate material. Fake news and fake stories and misinformation must come down, but there has to be order to be taken down. But they have to do it when they're given that order. So I'm calling Facebook Hello there.
Well,
And I'm saying take down all the misinformation. Now there's going to be a lot of room. There's going to be a lot of room on the
better
Facebook.
get your cat pictures ready.
Get get a good picture of a cat or my
Yes,
or
get your
my
cat
latest
pictures up there. Get a,
my
get, get
my
a whole
my
bunch of pictures of Puna ready because you'll be able to get them up and on there.
and he'll be the one that insists on having his picture first, not his brother Tomas.
Right, right.
Puna wants top building, billing. Phew. I told you I am not here. I'm drinking
Yeah.
coffee.
Um. So I saw something. I got to admit, I'm not a big fan of this debate being early anyway. I think
It's never been like this before.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
And Donald Trump is
Um,
apparently not. His preparing is not to prepare.
right. Well, I don't buy that Trump's not preparing either. I think he's probably preparing harder than he's ever prepared for anything in his life, which probably isn't much, um, but I do have to laugh. And the one good thing it has done, it has given me a whole new perspective on CNN, which
How
although
so?
I had to a certain degree before, some of the ridiculous stuff that they come up with, and to hear people who you think are supposed to be credible news anchors is part of why I watch CNN, is because I believe that they're probably, out of everybody, the most credible.
Oh,
They've
I think
sunk in
that's.
money.
I don't know about that.
Well, I believe, I believe it. I mean, some people do. There's people will tell you that Fox is the most credible.
I don't mean dishonest. I don't mean distorting the news, but in terms of their delivery and their presentation, I don't know that it's the most credible.
Well, no, 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 no. I'm saying that they devote money and producers and time to turn out a source that usually vets things, that usually, it's
I
not like
agree.
Fox where they hand somebody a piece of paper and he just looks at it and reads it on the air.
They got talking points at Fox. They got news at CNN.
If something goes on the air at CNN, I tend to believe that somebody in that organization didn't just take it off of Twitter, that they call, they got it and they called somebody, or they got in contact with somebody, or they at least Googled it.
And if they
you know,
screw up a town hall meeting and Donald Trump makes them look like idiots, heads roll.
yeah, and that wasn't, and again, that town hall meeting with Trump, they didn't screw it up in the sense that, he just was too much for her. And where you didn't have something going on was somebody, the executive producer, somebody should have stepped in there and gotten her ear and told her, shut him down.
Right.
And she was clearly, they put, I think she's a decent host. I think,
But
and
she doesn't do WrestleMania.
she's smart, and she doesn't go through, like you said, WrestleMania, but she was up against a world class bullshitter,
Yeah.
and those
And
people are hard to win arguments against.
a mud fighter never stops talking. In fact,
Yeah,
if you've
yeah,
seen the
they just
highlights
keep,
from the debate with the Trump and Biden in the past, Trump never shut up. He never
yeah.
ever kept quiet. He never
That
slowed down. He just ran over Joe Biden.
well, no, not. We're talking about what's your name, Caitlin Collins at the
I'm
town
talking
hall.
about right, but I'm talking about Trump's
Oh
technique.
yeah, no, and they're going to try to stop him from doing that. I believe. If
Uh,
we
if he gets picked up on Joe's mic, we got a problem.
well, he will. He obviously is going to get picked up. But well, the good thing is if he does get picked up by Biden's mic, he's going to sound like a ranting, raving idiot on the other side of the room.
Well, that's what he is.
Well, yeah. Well, he'll sound like it. Anyway, but CNN has taken this thing to heights and proportions that I'm questioning their sanity. Number one, number two, their credibility, and number three, Uh, if they believe, I mean, if they have been ranting now for a week that this is a historic event, this is not a historic event.
Not yet, it isn't.
This is a debate. The only thing that's is historic about it is the chronology of it, in that it's taking place before the conventions.
And it's never happened so early. There's no
Right.
reason. There's no reason for it to happen this early. But there you go. And if CNN's made a mistake about this, it's only the fact that they have teased the balls off of it.
Well,
It's
that's it.
like
That
it's
you
like
didn't
I've
mean.
heard enough about your debate already. I know it's Thursday night at 6 o'clock. I'll
Well,
be there. I don't need you to tell me about it anymore.
yeah, they just came on before we were, when I was sitting here waiting for you to jump on. They break in with breaking news,
And the
and
breaking
I'm
news
figuring
is
maybe somebody had a heart attack. I mean, maybe something happened. Right. The breaking news is that the set has been completed,
wow.
and here's Brianna Keeler just effusive and jumping up and down, and we have this late breaking news from downtown Atlanta. We just we're going to go to a live shot at the CNN Center. The last guy, like he's putting a freaking golden spike in Promontory, Utah. I
Who
mean,
I want to know who's the orchestra and who are going to be the dancers. Did they get Jackie Gleason's old set? Is it going to
they
be
got they
Sammy?
got Gleason's old set. They got the June Taylor dancers,
Thank you, June
and
Taylor. Sammy
making an
K.
appearance for the first time in 40 years, Sammy Spear.
Is he going to be in like a linen mausoleum, or does he going to have the orchestra with him?
He's gonna have one of his old jackets. Remember how Gleason used to go, "Oh, Sammy."
I'll use you on one of my Jackie Gleason that makes music for dreamers, for lovers, for sleepers.
For lovers, yeah, I have a couple of those albums. My dad loved those. He had them, and I have one where Gleason, as Reginald Van Gleason, um, does Casey at the Bat.
Ah, there you go.
And it's actually pretty good. It's that I mean,
It's
you
good.
probably got to get who Jackie Gleason is to to really get the full effect of it. But it still has that that hook to it that he had with the characters that he developed.
June Taylor dancers are going to do the high kicks, and Trump's going to come out and walk right into one. He's going to get it on the chin coming up.
Yeah, yeah, and Dr. Jill Biden will offer him first aid.
Clear the windpipe. Clear the windpipe.
Yeah, why? Why?
The first thing you do is check the airway.
Put him out of his misery now. So anyway, I mean
Put me
that's
out
really
too.
become, but like a train wreck that is coming.
You got to watch.
You're gonna watch. We're gonna be watching. I'm gonna be watching because on the off chance that one of them does shock or surprise you or do something.
And it's 90 minutes, correct? That's time for a.
I thought it was 60. Is it 90?
I think it's 90.
Yeah, it is 90. That's right. Because the complaint is not the complaint. What is it? People don't feel that Joe Biden will be able to stand up for 90 minutes. Well, I hate to tell you, I couldn't stand up for 90 minutes.
They're both going to feel like sitting down when it's over, I'll tell you that.
I just
And we're talking about the result of all the polls saying it's neck and neck. Maybe it is. Perhaps it is. Maybe those are the real numbers. But let's go to the state of New York, where we just had that great runoff between two Democrats. It was supposed to be neck and neck, and the old school guy instead of the new challenger won by 25 points. It wasn't close. It wasn't neck and neck. It wasn't the race it was supposed to be.
Well, I don't think it was. I don't know that it was neck and neck, Michael. I mean, Bowman stuck his foot in his mouth so many times.
Jamal Bowman.
there were people who said that he was behind in that race ever since the Palestinian the Hamas thing happened.
Yeah, yeah. He ended up
That
on the wrong side of that, and I don't know how you could run for office in that district and take his position and hope for a victory.
well, he had some things going on before that. I mean, this was not like he was. I think, this is my opinion, that Bowman was the um, Democratic equivalent of a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a much more intelligent.
And he
But
became a lost leader.
they're there because they're trying to make notoriety for themselves, not to serve the community.
Right. Yeah.
They're there because they're seeking um, internet fame, fortune. They want to be an influencer.
Too bad they spent their fortune running for office against each other.
Yeah, it's just that, and the guy, his name is escaping me at the moment, but he's the Westchester County executive.
Right.
He's a more traditional centrist,
Correct.
retail politics kind of guy.
So even in New York, a centrist has the advantage with a sensible campaign.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends. Of course, it depends on where you are. I mean, if you are in Staten Island, you're probably going to be better off being some right wing guy.
If you're on the west side of Manhattan, you have to be sensible, but a centrist will win.
Yeah, you got to be a lot more close to center. If you're on the east side of Manhattan in the '60s, '70s, and there you probably got to be a pretty flaming liberal.
Yep.
I mean, it's that we're here. It's the county lines or the east and west. The cities in California tend to be liberal. The Central Valley and places like that tend to be Republican. Here's the same thing with the west side of the state liberal, east side of the state Republican. Well, you have it in New York, but it goes from neighborhood to neighborhood. From you could have where Cortez is from, Alexandria Octavia-Cortez, was for many years a very liberal district. Then it kind of blew conservative for a while, and then blew back to being more liberal.
I have a question for you. Who lives in the Bowery these days? What is going on in the Bowery? I know it's been gentrified.
Very rich people, people with a lot of money.
Isn't it hilarious?
Yeah.
Only
every time I go there.
And do they proudly say, "I live in the Bowery. I'm a millionaire"?
Well, no. I mean, all of those places where all of those doorways now where the bums used to huddle, are now all lofts that go for $10,000 a month.
Yeah. Such as progress.
CBGB's, which is 345 Bowery, is now John Varvatos' world headquarters. There's a section of Bowery that is fashion oriented, section of Bowery that's got a bunch of clubs and stuff on it, and then when you get down to the end, it's the Chinese end. The piece that's in Chinatown just before you get to Canal Street. So, the Bowery.
I hope Canal Street doesn't change too much. I used to love to walk down Canal Street, and it was like being in a major capital in Africa for this block, a major capital in South America for this block, and a good place to buy an umbrella for $1.
Yeah, not so much anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, there's still some. The place is probably still mostly the same is Chinatown. So Canal from Bowery over to probably Lafayette is probably still.
Lafayette, we salute you.
Yeah. That's probably still fairly the same as it was. But once you get on the other side of that, Now you're talking, you're in Tribeca, and that's
And that's for white people.
yeah, Robert De Niro is living over there. That's his neighborhood. So
You got a film festival. That's what you run into.
yeah, I mean that's what he's got. That's what they got going on there. So you have that core, places on Canal and on the Bowery. It's still part of Chinatown, but for the most part, the whole Lower Manhattan is just out of reach for most, if not all, of the people. And the Chinese, for the most part, are smart. They're not going to sell the buildings. They'll rent out lost, but they're going to keep those buildings. Those are buildings that they bought when nobody wanted to buy a building down there.
Nobody wanted to live there or buy anything.
Right? They bought
Not
it
even
for
Chinese food.
$15,000 or something, or $20,000, and that is sitting on $8, $9, $10 million
Easily.
So they're not moving. They're not doing anything anytime soon.
Plus, now, instead of being a negative, it's the romance of living in Chinatown and Manhattan.
Right.
Everything changes. Now the Bowery is the world headquarters.
Although it's really interesting when I go down there, when I go back to New York and I go down there to still see kids, mostly Chinese kids, in uniforms, going to Catholic school, going to a couple of different private schools that are there. It's
It's got to be named after a saint that you've never heard of.
I forget what it is actually, but there's I think 2 parishes down there, and you still have the Confucius apartments, which are low in, for many people. I think it's mostly low income community apartments for senior citizens. So
You don't see a lot of that in Manhattan.
right, so you've in essence you've preserved a piece of that neighborhood, maybe not even intentionally.
I got a funny story to tell you about being Italian.
Okay.
My sister is in Europe. She's been visiting. Started off in Switzerland, and she's doing the Switzerland thing. She's hiking. She's in the mountains. There's snow-clad mountains. There's cows with bells. There's restaurants with everything Mitschlag. If the streets are clean, there's not a lot of people around. It's vistas and hikes and trails and Swiss things. She crosses the border just into Italy. Bingo! It's food, it's squares, it's shopping, it's cars, it's fountains. It's a completely different world. You go through a curtain and you leave Switzerland behind and you enter a place where let's get some pasta, let's take a walk, let's take a siesta, let's go into the streets. And this is northern Italy. She hasn't gotten to the real Italy yet. Now she's in Rome. Now she's in Roma. And my God, it's just the difference in society, the difference in energy, the difference in vistas, the difference in every tactile and momentary experience you have is a world away from where she was in Switzerland. She's in Italy.
I mean, it's so the societies are so different.
So
the
different.
Italians are very effusive. They're very they're open. They're about their society is for the most part about pleasure, about not so much work. When you've had, I don't know, what have they had, 60 governments since World War II?
But who's counting?
Yeah, when you have that kind of setup, you leave the problems of the world. Your big problem is, can I get coffee at 11 o'clock in the morning? Can I, what bakery has got rolls that I want this morning? Those are the big problems in life.
And then once you get those solved, you can start worrying about lunch.
Yeah. Because the world is going to happen no matter what.
So let's have the coffee, because
So
it's going
let's
to happen
drink
with
the
us or
coffee.
without
Let's
us.
eat the bread. Let's let's enjoy life. La Dolce Vita, the sweet life. You know, where in Switzerland and the Low Countries, there's more of a Germanic, I think, influence
Yep, you're right.
where people are much more uptight. You know, they're worried about is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Rightly so. I mean, you know, when you start to think about, um, you know, some of the crap that's gone on, but they don't. The Italians always figure, and I think probably the mafia has something to do with this, that things are going to run no matter what. No
Might be a
matter
little
what,
late.
the
Might be a
guy's
little
still going
late,
to
but
be in
it's
the
coming.
bakery.
Yeah.
The girl is still going to be at the coffee thing. I'm still going to make love to my wife when I get home tonight. You know, all of these things are going to happen no matter who's running the government, no matter who is down at the passport office, no matter who's the conductor of the train.
But we need coffee. Let's get that straight.
You know, you can mess with anything, just don't mess with the coffee. Because that's when I, you know, Mr. Italian, tend to
Draw the
get quite
line.
upset. And then things can happen. Then the trains stop running on time. Then the Fiats come out of the factory with 4 tires on one side, no tires on the other side.
Oh, that's right.
You know, then you see things start to happen. But as long as you don't mess with that, you know, you become, I think, in many ways, what we were here in so many ways, where you're not worried about who's running things. You just go and you show up and you do your job and you go home. It's a wonderful way to be, I think.
And you run, and at night you can see couples walking arm in arm through the town, the center of their own town. They've been there before. They'll go tomorrow night too, but it's a ritual that we don't
Yeah,
do here.
it's
Gotta
they
go home,
just
close the
don't
door.
they don't take it so seriously until there's a war, until there's some immediate danger.
And they've done that. They don't want to do it again.
Right. They're young enough to remember what troops marching down your main street is. They're young enough to
And there's
remember.
somebody else's troops because there couldn't be an Italian army marching down the middle of the street. It's lunchtime. They wouldn't do it.
Well, it's always interesting in that people do knock the Italian army, and rightly so. I mean, I think that the Italians would rather make love than war. I think that's probably since the Roman Empire.
And they taught that to the French when it was still Gaul.
Right. And I think the French come up in a really quick second on that one. Is that, in essence, 1, 2, 3, 4, what are we fighting for?
But ask the rest of them. Ask Belgium. Ask Luxembourg. Ask Holland. How do you guys like the war? We didn't like it that much. Who had fun during the war?
But we fought because for whatever reason. But the Italians and the French, they're more concerned about the things that you can change.
And it's a nice day. Besides, it's a beautiful day today. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's it. They worry more about what you can change. You can change, the quality of the coffee. You can change the pavement of the street. You can change the incompetent person at the post office. Those things you have some control over. You have no control over who's running the country, really. They tell you do, but you don't.
And you can try riding your bicycle on the cobblestones, but it ain't going to work. You can try it, but don't. Why bother? It doesn't work.
Yeah. So, people are going to do what they do. And unless it becomes a thing where a large quantity of the people are affected by it negatively, hey, Dizzy Potts, just act stupid. Act like you got nothing going on in your brain, and everybody will leave you alone. There's there's stories that I remember that my grandfather and one of my aunts used to tell me about this guy. I think he was from the village, the place where my grandfather was from. And, everybody in the town thought he was a fool. He didn't know everybody. Well, he knew everybody knew him. I mean, he grew up there, but he was like the town fool. But a public fool. Like he'd stand out on the corner and wave the Italian flag and things like that. So everybody always took care of the guy. They make sure he had meals, they make sure he had this, they make sure he had that. In fact, they come to find out after a certain amount of time that there was nothing wrong with the guy. He was one of the smartest people in the town.
But it was to his advantage to be a dummy.
But if he knew that everybody knew he was the smartest guy in the town, then he'd be asked to run things. He'd be asked his opinion on things. He'd be asked to take sides in matters.
Yeah.
And he didn't want that. But the protocol of Italian society is you don't want to just throw up your hands and say, I'm not interested.
Because that's not going to work. That's not welcome.
If they know you're smart enough, they're going to figure out a way. So he just acted the fool, acted stupid. And, and people left him alone. He didn't have to get involved in anything. He had, people taking care of him.
That's not the American way, is it?
No. We have to stick our noses in wherever we think we can fit them.
And if you know nothing about schooling, you want to be on the school board. If you know nothing about libraries, you want to shut down the books. If you know nothing about the military, you want to tell the generals what to do. That's the American way.
Well, we seem, and social media has really blown this out of proportion. We've talked about this a number of times, Michael, is that we will take advice about vaccines from the guy
from Zazu Pitts
at the table,
yeah,
at Thanksgiving, and can't figure out why the turkey gets cooked. We'll take advice from something that's wrong with our car from our next door neighbor over the mechanic who says, well, you got to fix this, you got to fix that.
In America, we always quote they because that's what they say. Well, that's what they say. That's what they say about that, Vinnie. The transmission doesn't need fluid. It runs better without fluid.
Right.
That's what they say.
But we tend to put way too much stock in the answers of people that don't know anything. And so now that has carried into social media, which is just a big extension of, a gaggle of, there's good things about it, but there's also a large amount of people who know absolutely nothing about nothing and will make sure that
and willing to flaunt it.
Yeah. Yeah. And are willing to say, well, I know about this and I know about that. And I know about this. And, and listen, I've done it sometimes too. It's interesting. I'll come clean on something. I don't know why, but you know what Nextdoor is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a social media platform
for your neighborhood.
It's supposed to have everybody in the neighborhood. Well, some guy wrote something about, I guess there's a plan here in Washington for people who get Amazon packages to have to pay like a 10 or 15 cent or 20 cent tax.
A cardboard transition tax?
On the package, yeah, because the gas tax, because there are so many electric cars here, is the collection of the gas tax is down, and they got to make it up from somewhere. So Amazon's big fleet of trucks is now mostly electric. So they're saying, well, we're losing, this is the biggest offender. So let's charge everybody 20 cents. That 20 cents isn't going to break anybody. And it could generate enough revenue to at least fix part of the problem. So some guy wrote this thing about this, and I hardly ever answer anything on Nextdoor, but I saw this and it pissed me off enough that I sat down and I wrote, well, that's blah, 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 blah. Washington State doesn't have an income tax, so we're still ahead of the game, no matter how you slice it. 20 cents isn't going to kill anybody. And by the way, Washington has, I'm sure, are in the top 10 of the road conditions of the state, that they're in good condition. And I wrote that, and it came to my mind because I had seen an article that talked about infrastructure in Washington, and that we're high on, that our infrastructure here is basically good, that it's been maintained.
Right.
But I just put, and I'll bet you're in the top 10 of roads. Well, turns out that according to a number of surveys, we're in the bottom 10.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it shocked me. I'd have thought that, wait till I tell you, it's number one, Alabama.
They don't have a winter.
They're supposed to have the best roads in the country. So the whole thing to me. But anyway, so after I wrote the post, somebody said, well, I don't know. I looked, I Googled, and so I went back and I Googled and I saw what I did. So I wrote, it's my bad. I didn't look. I mistook infrastructure for roads, which is something you never see anybody do. And people will fight to the death. But it was my bad, because I should have, before I opened my mouth, I should have went and checked. But sometimes you just go with your gut. And I don't know, it bothered me for a couple of minutes that I did that, but then I looked around and I saw what other people were writing, and nobody had a concept of what sense was in the thing anyway. 20 cents on a package isn't going to kill anybody. And if it makes up the deficit you don't pay an income tax. That's, $3,000 or $4,000 a year that goes into your pocket. Now they figure out other ways to get it out, but.
Well, also sometimes they collect the money, but they don't make the repairs on the roads, because in Washington, in the snow country, you can only do it in the summertime anyway.
Right.
Repair season. So the clock is ticking. Oh, you're always behind schedule because the clock is ticking against you, and so is weather and Mother Nature.
And then when the weather is nice, they're out there making the repairs on the road, and everybody's pissed off at Washington because
there's one lane between here and
you ruined my vacation. I had to wait 10 minutes for a one-lane road to pass. Oh, God, my vacation is ruined. People have turned into such pussies, man. It's really kind of disconcerting. So anyway, so I'm guilty of what I was just saying. I'm guilty of it myself. I do it sometimes. I open my mouth before. Not that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I was partially right. But if you're going to write something and you're, and you're, I don't know, and you're writing it on social media, what do I always preach? Check it. Take a second and check it. So that was my, that was my mistake, my bad. It is hard to believe, though.
The nature of a post on social media is something that you can do while driving on Highway 5. It's something that is a snarky reminder of how clever you are and how stupid the person is that you're criticizing. The point's not the point that he made or she made. The point is you reject it regardless.
Well,
And that's an overstatement, but that's pretty much the way the exchanges go. Unless it's your birthday and everyone's going, dude, happy birthday, hey, rock
yeah.
on.
Well, I think that I think that in a perfect world, when people would, the idea of social media, when you're doing that, is to bring something to the conversation, is to bring, well, yes, you're getting this. And my whole post wasn't just about the condition of the roads. It was about, we have more people in Washington. We're among the top 10 states in adopting electric cars. I mean, California's number one. Um, but I think, I don't know, I forget, I think we're number 8 or 7, something like that, in electric EV adoption.
I thought they'd be closer to number one, but not today.
No, no, I think it's us. I think it's California,
Massachusetts.
California, Massachusetts, New York, which was a little bit surprising to me. Uh, um, I'm gonna look just to make sure. Cars with, wait, states. Oh God, states with most EVs. I know that we are, or we were, up until not too long ago. So I put states with most EVs. They gave me the states with the most evangelicals.
Same thing. Do evangelicals call themselves EVs? We're the EVs.
I don't
We
know.
walk amongst you.
Let's see. Boy, sometimes. All right, so California, Oregon, Nevada, Hawaii, Colorado, Vermont, Washington. Yeah, this is kind of a dumb way to do. Google has this set up. Um, okay, here we go. Electric vehicle registrations by state. California is number one. Florida and Texas are tied for number 2.
Wow.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that. Um, in the third percentile, there is New York and New Jersey, and then Washington. Excuse me, it's the other way around. Washington, then New York, New Jersey. So we're like 5 on the list, 4 or 5. Lowest, Alaska, followed by West
They don't have
Virginia and Wyoming.
they haven't got enough electricity in Alaska to charge their car. They're still doing lamps with oil.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to charge your car from an oil lamp. So, and these are 2022 numbers. So, yeah, it's interesting to us, and I would have never guessed Texas or Florida.
Well, they got a big population. People are making choices based on what they want.
Yeah, exactly. But in both states, you have governors who have are Republican governors who have done all they can do to stifle the growth of electric charging stations.
I think of what it says about Texas is the actual people there don't care what the governor thinks.
I'd like to think that's true. I would hope that's true, and I think that in places like San Antonio and Austin and Dallas,
Yeah.
you get that buzz. I don't know if the same is true when you go to places like Abilene and San Antonio and
Waco.
not San Antonio. Why am I forgetting the Fort Worth?
Well, Fort Worth is really just Dallas with another name, isn't it?
No, not really. It's a different enough from Dallas. Fort Worth is really um, it's much more Republican, much more rancher, and Dallas is oil money. Houston is oil money. Um, Fort Worth is cattle money.
Oh, well, that's a different kind of money. It is.
It is, yeah, it is a different kind of money. It tends to be much more conservative, even in the oil money. But the thing is, the oil money is the money that's going to try to say, well, let's take it easy here and not get things out of hand. Let's not let things get out of hand. Let's stick with the oil because we happen to be one of the top oil producing places in the country.
I should know more about Texas. My mother was from Texas. Her whole side of the family was from Texas. She said, "You're not going to like it there," and
Yeah,
it was the greatest advice she ever gave me.
I don't know many people who I know a few people from my early life that went to Texas and liked it and stayed. But for the most part, I don't know anybody who moved to Texas and thought it was a good thing.
Well, Willie Nelson moved there from Nashville. That worked out for him.
Well, Willie Nelson probably, I mean, he got busted for pot there, didn't he?
Yeah, and he got busted for not paying his taxes, but that's what Texans do.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Billy Solestis got arrested for land deals.
He was trying to sell swampland, and they didn't have any swampland, but he was selling it anyway.
Well, yeah, he was, and he had a good friend named Lyndon Johnson who helped him out.
Always helped out Billy Saul.
God helps those that help you campaign contributors.
And isn't it funny that Texas is the #1 state with people with 3 names, like Billy Saul?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that kind of stuff. Joey Bob and
You'd be Vinnie Bob.
Thank you. No.
Vinnie Bob, run outside and get me a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I shouldn't. Well, I don't know. I've always had a bad taste for Texas since Kennedy. I mean, anybody who was around in our generation, always remembers that Texas is the state that killed Kennedy. And for a long time, that stuck, and it's never quite gone away.
Yeah.
For a lot of people still. It's why for many years companies wouldn't go to Dallas. They wanted to move out of Dallas. They didn't want their name associated with Dallas. Even though even though
the Johnson Space Center is in Houston, which is a city where 30% of the people don't even believe we went to the moon. So go figure.
Well, it's what's the other place where they do that is Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, right. You're right.
We have
it's full of physics majors.
JPL, that's in Pasadena, but
astrophysicists. Well, it's a space headquarters.
Yes, yeah, space headquarters. It's like the headquarters of the space program, and people don't believe we went to the moon or we went to space or we took that money and we sent it to Marilyn Monroe, where her and John Kennedy lived together happily ever after.
On the moon.
On the moon. What do you think they wanted to get there?
They had to get to the moon. That's where their
apartment was. If Jackie would have found him, she would have beat the crap out of him. Oh, Mikey. So, what do you think on this debate tomorrow? Do you think there's going to be one person in America that's going to have their mind changed after watching the 90 minutes of debate tomorrow?
Probably not, because the people voting for Trump will make excuses for everything he does wrong. People voting for Biden will say he's our only hope. And the 20% of Americans that can't decide who to vote on between those two men are so stupid and so convoluted and so tied in knots that nothing is going to help them make up what they say is their mind. I don't know what they're thinking with. I think their brains must be in their arse, but they can't come up. They just can't decide. They can't come up with a decision. They can't. I might go with Robert Kennedy. No, no, that's not a choice. Yeah, I've been thinking about it. He says some good things. Name one. Well, I wouldn't say anything specific. Just sounds kind of interesting. I'm thinking about it.
I I saw a Robert F. Kennedy sign yesterday.
I
One
saw a bumper.
sign.
I saw a bumper sticker yesterday.
You got to admit it is a bit of a throwback to see a
A Kennedy
sign
sticker.
with RFK's name on it.
Yes.
Even though it's the wrong one, there's still that little, if you're from our generation, that little twinge that you get.
That can't be
Remembering
right.
back to, and then you quickly realize that it's not.
It ain't that Kennedy.
It ain't that Robert F. Kennedy.
And it isn't that kind of a Kennedy thing. It's a very different Kennedy thing.
The Kennedy thing is a very different thing these days. There's the the um, the glow has worn off of the fastball.
It's hittable, and you can see it coming.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's without a doubt hittable. Speaking about hittable,
Our teams suck. Well, you beat the Yankees, didn't you? Who
we
did the
beat the,
Mets
you know
beat?
what? All was right. Although, let me tell you something. It took all they had to beat them.
It ain't easy to beat the Yankees. You just don't beat them.
They, I'm sitting there in the car listening to the game, and they bring in, I don't even know who the guy is, some pitcher that they picked up from somewhere, and he goes 0-2 on Aaron Judge. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm saying, I know what this guy's going to do.
He's going to groove one.
I know exactly what he's doing. He figures that Judge is going to sit there and wait for one. And so he sent it down the center of the plate, and Judge put it into the Sambucci brothers' junkyard across the street.
We're never going to get that ball back.
Nope. Tony Sambucci is probably holding on to that ball right now in the front yard of the junkyard. And so luckily, it still brought the score to, I think, 1. And then the Mets, I forget who they got out to end it, but it was way closer than it should have been, or it had to be. But see, that's the thing. But again, it doesn't matter whether you beat them by 1 or you beat them by 10.
It does not matter.
You beat them. So all is right. Although, Mikey, it's kind of, I don't know that there's still, I mean, I buy into it. People I know buy into it. But the younger people, I don't know that they buy into it as a rivalry as much anymore. I mean, I could never imagine somebody wearing a hat that had both the Giants and the Dodgers logos on them.
Unless it's a mother's who's got a kid on each team.
Even then, if she's from New York, but yet, I mean, that's part of the thing is that there was just always such a disdain for the other teams or team.
And you would never give in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, I'm 68 years old and I haven't given in. I mean, there's been a few different times in my life where I've softened, lightened up a bit on my hate of the Yankees for one reason or the other. Um, but for the most part, there's just no, you just don't root for the Yankees if you're a Mets fan,
No way.
or consequently, if you were a Dodger fan or a Giant fan. But that's when hate was hate. I mean, if you didn't hate the Yankees, you hated if you were a Giants fan, you hated the Dodgers. If you're a Dodgers fan, you hated the Giants. You were lucky. In 1950s New York, you had two teams to hate.
And you had to be busy all day long doing it.
Yeah, it wasn't easy because if you let's say you were a Hoffman soda truck driver, so you're out on your route, you got your Giants cap on, and you go to your first stop, and it's in Brooklyn.
You got a problem.
Well, you're not getting out of there with just dropping your soda off. That's not happening. You got a
No.
half-hour conversation about why Wes Westrum is better than Yogi Berra or Roy Campanella. And then you get your car, you drive, you get your truck, you drive down a little further down the street, and some kid is standing on a corner while you're waiting for the light, and he's screaming at you because he's got a Dodgers hat on. Hey, asshole.
Get out of our town.
You're in the wrong neighborhood. So
That's
yeah,
hilarious.
it messes with the means of production.
I had my
But
Giants hat on in the line at Safeway the other day, and the kid that was checking me out says, "You know you're in enemy territory." And I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm from Sacramento. I'm a Giants fan." I said, "Well, I'm from Marin. I'm a Giants fan." I said, "I'm wearing this for Willie. Anybody can say anything they want. Go ahead. Open fire. I got you. I credit you one day of criticism."
it's pretty fun.
I'm
Yeah,
used to wearing Giants hats in enemy territory.
yeah, yeah. And in those days, um, even now, and I think part of it is people didn't beat people up when they wore a Giants hat to Yankee Stadium or to Ebbets Field. I mean, if somebody got beat up for something, it was probably because some idiots got drunk or something. Something happened.
Or they said too much.
Yeah, nowadays,
Be who you want. Don't run your mouth.
yeah, nowadays, you could be walking outside the stadium with a different team's cap on, and somebody will come over and knock it off your head because they want to, show their manhood.
You die in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that stuff used to happen. I don't remember it happening. I remember that you'd take verbal abuse sitting in the stands.
Remember him used to do color for the Kansas City Chiefs. Verbal abuse.
Verbal abuse. Yeah,
Verbal, get in here. Hey, Verb.
Yeah, hey, Verb. What do you think of the front line today, Verb? Yeah, Verb was a good guy. He had his own home run call. It was quite unique.
I can't. Did that go out? You used to say, "Is that out of
Is
here?"
that gone? Or his other famous one in the World Series in '80. It's going. Where'd it go?
These are the good questions that aren't asked enough in baseball.
Verb abuse, man. Was a good guy too. Just he had a little trouble seeing.
Always willing to hop on, have a few words with you. He might not be able to comment about tonight's game, but he will fill the segment.
Yeah, he'll because he had a free flowing style. I
Lived in
think
the same
that's what we
lived
ought
in
to
the same
call the
apartment
clock
building
rule.
with.
Instead of
Oh,
well, we got the Smokey Burgess rule for the runner at second. I think we ought to call we ought to call
the time clock
the
walking in
clock
the
off
winning pit.
the verb abuse rule.
Yeah, that's verbal abuse. Somewhere Verbal is rolling over in his grave. We thinking of you,
Verbal's
Verbal.
happy. You know,
He was
Verbal
always
was a
happy.
man of many words,
He
but
would stand
very
on the
few
he
of them.
would stand on the corner and wave the Italian flag. We thought he was out of his mind. Turned out he was.
He was, yeah, but he was, he was collecting checks.
Vinnie, shall we gather on a Freaky Friday?
I think we should. We'll have the debate to talk about, and maybe with any kind of luck, one of them will walk over and hit the other one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how that would work out for everybody. If it's Trump, nah, it's not going to work.
Well, if Biden goes from his podium over to Trump, it would be 20 minutes before.
It would take him a while to get there.
Yeah, I mean, Joe's not exactly moving quick these days.
Neither am
And
I.
for Trump, if he decided to run away from him, the whole thing was, could he run away without crapping in his pants?
No guarantees on that.
You don't just get bestowed the title of von Schitzenpants on you. You have to earn something like that.
Herr von Schützenpants, welcome to the welcome von Schützenpants.
You don't just get von Schitzenpants because you're farting around.
Don't be stupid, be a smarty.
Come and join the Nazi party. All right, let's get together
right,
and do this on Friday post debate, and we'll try to see if we can solve all the problems in the world by
the weekend.
Buying electric vehicles in Wisconsin. That's an interesting thing. Wisconsin and Minnesota have a large amount of people with electric vehicles.
It's the thing, Vinny.
All right, Mikey, I'll see you on Friday if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.
What a wine, what a wine, what a wine.
Peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby.
It's a considerably sweeter wine than you expect.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for listening to our little soiree here. We'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.